Welcome back, everybody. Yogi's Trail reporting from on the trail today. We are at segment 3 of the Colorado Trail. Here on a beautiful day, I decided to break out some stoves and let's talk about cook systems here. We're going to group this video into different kind of styles of ignition, I would say, different fuels. So we have our canister stoves, we are going to have our alcohol stoves, we're going to have our kind of wood burning stove, we're going to have a stove that is not a stove. And we're going to have some stuff to kind of like, bring along with your stove and just some considerations and stuff like that. To start things off with the video, I want to talk about my number one consideration, and that is using any of these in your shelter. Okay, do not cook in your shelter. You can cook in your vestibule of your shelter if you want to. Man, that truck was loud. But do not cook in your shelter with these. Carbon monoxide gas is odorless, tasteless, colorless, you can't see it. It will knock you out and then it will deprive you of oxygen, and you basically it's a super deadly, and don't cook in your shelter. That's the number one message of the video. But other than that, we are going to start off with my favorite stove here. This is going to be the Jetboil. My favorite because it is my first. I bought this about 8 years ago, I think. So it's been with me my whole backpacking career. I love it. It's kind of my favorite right now, just because it's so easy to use and compact, and it's not light by any means. It's the heaviest of these systems, but it's my favorite here in this video because it is so easy. And if you're watching this video as a beginner backpacker, like I'm making these videos for, this is just some options for you. This here is going to be the easiest. It's going to be the safest. It's going to be the most manageable. Will you want to graduate to something after it? Oh yeah, of course, probably. You might not. You might be super happy with it and keep it for the rest of your life. But some pros of it: it has a lid with little sippy cup thingy-majiggy, so little hot lips adapter, so you don't burn your lips when you're drinking hot cocoa. And it has a little pasta strainer for straining water. It has a sleeve for insulation, for insulating the mug that you can take off if you want to, or use it as a single-walled mug, warm your hands up in the morning. And over here you have a really cool array of little folds. And these little metal folds disperse the heat so well around the cup. It is the most efficient out of all these stoves by far. It is also, because of this little system, it's the best in cold weather and altitude. So mountaineers bring this, climbers take these styles of stoves. MSR makes a really cool style of stove that's called the Reactor series that I don't have, but I would like. That's going to be just like the Jetboil. I will link it below. But these styles of stoves, these little Jetboil style, are just super good on inclement conditions. Like if you're going to be going out in the winter and you're just like, man, I just want something I'm not going to have to fiddle with, this is going to be perfect. And it's going to work in that cold. They sell adapters where you can invert the canister and run a line over here, so the canister is inverted and it works a little bit better to disperse that fuel in really cold conditions. So this is going to be our hero because it is so safe, so easy to use, so it's pretty much affordable. They're not crazy expensive. They're definitely not the cheapest option, but they are a great investment. And to move on to them, we have an upright canister stove. This one here is going to be our lightest upright canister stove. It is a BRS, I think it's a titanium stove, weighs like an ounce. It's pretty good. It's, suffers in the wind. It's definitely not the most, capable of all these stoves here. And I don't know really how the cold weather performance is on it. I've used it in the 30s, but I don't know how it works in the 20s or the teens. I would think it'd work okay. But yeah, this little guy here is the lightest. It's the cheapest of the canister stoves, and it's the most compact. Is it the most, best of boiling times? No, but it definitely works, and I used it a ton. It's very reliable. I don't want to dog it whatsoever. It's a great stove for 15 to 20 bucks. You really can't do much better on this rock here. My favorite upright canister stove right now is going to be the Soto Windmaster. This guy right here, just very good construction. It is the most pricey of all these canister stoves that I have up, the upright canister stoves. But it's very well made. It works like a champ in the wind. This little recession here, where it has this little kind of concave little construction to it, houses the piezo igniter. So it really kind of lights up pretty well. That's pretty reliable actually. But I still bring a lighter with all these as backup just in case. and light-ish. It weighs. I'll put all the weights below everything here, so I'm not saying anything incorrect, but it's probably 2.5 ounces ish. This one here, I also bought when I started backpacking. This is a MSR Pocket Rocket. This is really good for, maybe larger groups. It's good at boiling larger containers here, larger pots. So this here is a little bit on the heavier side too. I think it's about 4-ish ounces. And other than that, it's rugged, works great. I use it as a great car camping stove. But great backpacking choice as well, especially if you're going to like 3 or 4 people and you want a little bit bigger pot. Going into pots, this one has its own pot included with it. If you're bringing an upright canister stove, you got to bring a pot. So you can bring something super, super tiny like this 550. You could bring something medium size like this 700, or you can bring something big like this 900. Now this 550, like people use them to cook out of and stuff. Like I don't. If you're boiling water and that's all you're doing and just making mountain houses, this is an awesome choice because you can just boil water, pour it in the mountain house, and then you have a cup for coffee or something if you want to do that. But for cooking in, like cooking ramen in and stuff like that, you can do it. It's just going to be tough. It's going to be really tough. You're going to have to practice. And I don't want that stress of like trying to, keep every bit of, food in my pot in my heavy bear area when I'm out there in the wilderness. So I personally choose like a 700 milliliter size for personal use. If 2 people are going, you can bring a 900. And that's going to go good for doing 2 people. You could even do 2 people with this 700 as well. But it's a nice little pot there for cooking out of as well too. If you want to make noodles in this, if you want to do whatever, like that's going to work pretty well. Now, when I say do whatever, this just reminded me. These are all single-walled titanium cups. Do not cook out of a double wall. This here is like a double wall. It's going to be the style of cup that basically keeps your items cold or hot for super long time. You don't want to use those on any type of cooking, fire, alcohol, canister, whatever. These will blow up if you have like the hydro flask with the lid on it and you try to cook on that, it's going to blow up. It's right next to carbon monoxide. It's number 2 in the don'ts for the stove video. 1 is cooking in your shelter. 2 is using a double wall mug to cook with. I always use a single wall. This titanium, the heat transfer happens really, really quick with it, so keep that in mind if you're going to cook like beans and something like this. Like it's not going to be a good choice. You're going to have to keep stirring it the whole time because it'll burn food on it within like 10 seconds of the food sitting there. So if you're going to cook, I'd choose like maybe aluminum or something of a different material. They have cool like little ceramic coated pots too that I like for cooking in. But these are good for mostly boiling water. You can do ramen and couscous and simple stuff like that in them too. So they're also going to be the lightest option for sure. This one, weighs like, I don't remember the weights, but I'll put them all up here. They're definitely on the lighter side. This here is going to be a pot that's actually shaped like a pot. And it has a really cool extendable grip here that I like. This can burn and light on fire and stuff, so keep that in mind. But it's gonna, sometimes you forget and you go to grab your cup and it'll burn you. And keep in mind these are all going to be super hot when they're on the stove. Unless they have this little grip on them. Even this grip gets pretty warm too, and I would say kind of hot too, right off the stove. So let stuff kind of cool down, after you've cooked on it before you go grab it. This titanium cools down pretty quick. Like I said, the heat transfer is high with it, so it heats up really quick, but it also cools down pretty quick. So 30, 60 seconds or something, you can take your pot off or use like a buff or a handkerchief or whatever to handle it when it is hot. Other than that, with canister stoves, I think that kind of wraps up upright canister stoves and Jetboil style canister stoves. There's a lot of options out there. Make the best decision that's right for you and that's going to be good for your trips and your budget and everything like that. Now, going into stuff and speaking about budget, you have alcohol stoves. Alcohol stoves are extremely cheap and extremely light. Their weight savings do start to negate after like maybe 10 to 14 days. So kind of keep that in mind if you're going on like a 2 or 3 day trip. Alcohol is going to be super, super light. Keep in mind the alcohol is going to be like, once you use an ounce of alcohol, that ounce is gone. This little canister, the metal container for it, weighs, 4 ounces by itself or something. So right there, you just weight just for carrying the fuel in the container. And alcohol fuel, you can carry it in little tiny plastic containers, little water bottle containers. Make sure you mark that it's fuel if you're going to put it in like an Aquafina bottle, because the heat, the fuel that you use for these is clear. It looks just like water. The fuel is super cheap, affordable. You can buy heat. It's a little yellow bottle with the blue lettering on it at gas stations, grocery stores. You can use Everclear. You can use denatured alcohol for your fuel. So very cheap, very readily available, very light. This is a pop can, weighs an ounce. You do have to have a little learning curve with them, of course. We're going to go into some cons of them. One, I don't know if this is really a con, really, but you have to be precise with your measurements and your planning with it. So this is more of a learning curve, I would say. You just have to know how much alcohol you're going to use for your coffee, for your tea, for your dinner at nighttime, and you have to just do the math really quick over the amounts of time you're going to be gone, carry any extra if you want to be safe, and then be like, okay, this is how much I bring, this is how much I'm using per day, and you bring a little measurement device along with you just so you're, making sure everything's exact with your plan. We will go into cons with them now. They are very volatile for safety reasons. Like, they're not safe. If a big, huge wind gust comes, it could knock your fuel over. Wherever your fuel goes, it's going to light whatever that is on fire, because it's highly flammable fuel. You can use something like this over here. This right here is like a Sidewinder cone setup. Of course, I'll link all this stuff in the bottom. But this right here is, you're going to be able to stake this down actually into the ground. And it provides a good little support for this pot specifically, and you can pair these up with different designs. Like, they make ones that'll fit different size cups and whatnot, and they sell little packages too. So I'll link that in the bottom. It's pretty cool. But if you're going to use alcohol, I'd suggest using that system. It acts as a wind guard. It's just as light. This whole system here is Thai. It weighs like an ounce or something, I think. Like, I'll put the exact ounce or weights in the bottom, but man, it is light. It acts as a nice pot support. It's very easy to cook out of. If I got to stir something, it like supports the whole pot for me, and I don't have to worry about it dropping off the side of the canister or anything. So I do love these setups for alcohol stoves. I have used these little setups here. This actually goes with this. I have used this little stove here, but you have to use this windscreen. I kind of don't like how a gust of wind can just take it from me, but I know a lot of people love these. They're little Zelf cat food cans. But very, very volatile. You can also start a forest fire very easily with them. The chemical component is number one. I can't put it in any bottle that I've tried. I've tried every single bottle I can with gaskets. This one has 2 gaskets on it. To try to keep it from leaking, they always leak on me. Maybe because I'm coming up from elevation, it's from 5,000 to 8,000 or 9. That's probably it. But I don't know why. They always leak on me, and I don't like the fuel getting on my gear, on my hands and my skin. I've spilt it on my desk, and it's taken the varnish off of my desk. So I kind of really don't use alcohol anymore just because of the fuel component. I just don't like the fuel. I don't like the hassle of it. I don't like having to deal with the flammability of it. And yeah, it's just something that I don't really like personally, but that's just me. You might love alcohol. A lot of people do. I used alcohol for years, and I loved it for a while. And just it's definitely more personal things for me on the con side for why I don't use it. But really for cons, other than that, the flame is invisible when it's daylight. Like, you can't see the flame, so you kind of want to be careful when you're messing with them in the daytime. If you're going to do an alcohol system and you're just starting out, make sure you practice in your backyard and you kind of get it down, and you know how this stuff kind of works too. Because once that stuff gets out of control, the consequences can be kind of dire. In some cases, very, very, very tragic. Like a forest fire, you don't want to start a forest fire. So be careful with those. Be careful with all this stuff. Of course, it's all, fire hazards, but especially alcohol stoves. And this one here goes into our next stove. This doubles as a fire stove. So I can make this little titanium floor, put a little, pile of wood in there, ignite it with my Vaseline cotton ball, and I have just got to keep feeding it. Have a little stick well next to you, a little well to take from, and keep feeding your fire, because you don't want it to go out when it's halfway boiling your water. One really big thing you have to be aware of with the fire stove, with the wood burning stove, is one, the safety, just like the alcohol. But 2, I'll tell you a personal story. I was using this out one time, making a little fire stove, and I went to go clean up and do my dishes, and came back and went to break this down, and the ground was smoking from underneath. It had started the wood underground on fire, all the growth underground. There was a little mini fire going on. And I had this going on for, I don't know, the fire was probably active for like 30, 45 minutes on that little on that little floor there. So, you know, it was there for a while, and, you know, the titanium floor is supposed to protect the forest floor, but you know, it didn't. And I had to put probably about 60 ounces of water, 60, 2 Nalgeons full of water down the whole little hole to put that to put the fire out. I think I just poured water down until it stopped smoking. But that right there, I haven't really used wood burning fires since. Probably, you know, that was somewhat user error. It's probably safer to do it on a rock or something harder that's not going to, you know, seep through to the forest floor. So kind of keep that in mind if you're going to use those. Maybe use a really nice hard surface to kind of put that on top of. And after fire stoves, we're going to have an Esbit fuel stove. I just want to include these. They're kind of cool. They're like, I think they're from World War II. They used to give them to soldiers, but it's a little fuel tab system. One tab is supposed to be good for, I think, 16-ish ounces of water. I've tried them and it didn't work. I had to use 2 fuel tabs. Of course, it was my first time using it, and it could have been, you know, user error, but this is actually going to be the lightest out of all these options, like when you kind of look at the long run of things. It's also the most expensive. These little fuel tabs are pricey. They're not really readily available. Like, yeah, they're at gear shops. Yeah, they're, you know, here and there, but they're not going to be at like a gas station probably. They're probably not going to be at, you know, middle of nowhere. You know, so definitely keep that in mind. I just wanted to throw it out there. It is one of the options out there for cooking. And now we're going to go into an option where you don't cook, cold soaking. So for cold soaking, you can use just like a Talenti gelato jar, a peanut butter jar. I just have this GSI mug that has a little cup on the outside that could be used for cold soaking. So that's my demonstrative product right there. But other than that, cold soaking, just simple. You just pour the water in it, you let it soak. If you ever run out of fuel, you can always cold soak your food. So don't, you know, freak out if you run out of fuel on a trip. You can always just put the same amount of water in, let it sit there for, you know, 45 minutes, an hour. Whenever the food is hydrated and ready to eat, it's ready to go. And that's cold soaking for you. Another way of kind of like cooking that, I don't know, you're kind of cooking, but you're not really, is freezer bag method. Freezer bag method is going to be pretty sweet because there's very low dishes to do. You basically take your food, like you could take a Mountain House, you could put it in a freezer bag, which I recommend to do anyways because they're lighter. It has to be a freezer bag though. Make sure it's a freezer bag. You can throw your Mountain House in there, zip it up, label it, put how much water it needs, you know, blow that water up, throw it in your freezer bag, and then you throw it in this little pocket here, and this is just a cozy. So you can make cozies for, like this one here is for this Evernew bowl here. You can make them for, you know, your titanium little pots and cups here as well. You can use it right here for a freezer bag method and just throw your freezer bag in there, you know, push that shut and let it sit for about 20 minutes. And then your food is good and it's hydrated and it's also warm because it's in that little cozy. And you do the same thing with these pots. You know, you cook your food in it, you stir it up, you put it in the cozy, you cover it, and, you know, voila, give it some time, and it's all hydrated and it's warm and it's good to go. Stuff that we kind of bring with our, remember this is a cook system video, so we're going to talk about cook systems. We've covered, you know, stoves and types of fuel and, you know, safety stuff, this and yada, yada, yada. Now you're going to have some stuff to bring with your cook system. So you have some sort of spoon. Don't ever bring these. They're horrible. They always break. Maybe you've had one for your life, but I break them like within 2 days of having them. I always get like a metal, titanium, bamboo, chopsticks, whatever, something to eat your food with. I like a titanium long-handled spoon because it can dig in deep on those freezer bags and I don't get my hands all dirty with food and whatnot. Little cup to bring, you know, double wall insulated cup if you want to keep something, you know, warm for a while. What I kind of personally like is this cup because it's you can do single walled or double wall. Has a little insulative sleeve right there. So I'm sorry, not double wall, but it can be insulated. But I do like single walled cups in the backcountry, especially when it's kind of cold. Like you have a nice warm beverage in your hand, and your hands are usually always cold in the morning and night. So it's nice to kind of just give your hands a little warm up, especially in the morning. Get those fingers going and whatnot. You're gonna bring a little, I don't know, I like to bring, this is just me, of course, this is, you know, the way I do it. You can do whatever you want to, but I bring like a little sack to put everything in. So in my like personal system, I'll have like this 700 mug, I'll have the BRS stove, and I'll have my gas can, and I'll have this little guy all in this thing. And that'll hold everything. So I have everything just in one spot, and I can take that out when I need to cook, and everything goes back in it, and I can hang it if I want to hang it, or, you know, keep it in my pack if I want to keep it in my pack. But this little guy here is just a mesh little bag. It has the stove carrying case. I like to keep that just so the stove doesn't get, a bunch of water from the towel in it or whatever, dirt, who knows. This is a light load towel. I love these towels. They're super light and they're actually pretty rugged, and they work really well for backpacking. And then I have a little scrubber that I just cut off of a scrubby pad from a scrubby pad at the grocery store. It's my little scrubber for my pot, and a little mini Bic, of course. And then I just have this Sea to Summit Wilderness Wash. Just whatever kind of wash that's wilderness friendly is good. And this one has this cap. For some reason, this bottle has never leaked on me, not once. I've had many bottles and they always leak. And this bottle has never ever failed me. And so that's kind of specifically why I go for that brand. And maybe you got a brand out there that you know that has never failed you in leaking. If you do, please let me know, because I'm always in search for bottles that are not leakers. And so kind of everything goes in there, and that's pretty much the video for Cook Systems. If you have any questions about the gear on the rock here, if you want to talk about any of this stuff in more detail, if I left something out that you have a question about, please let me know. But thanks for watching, and we will see you in the next one.